Hello everyone, my name is Josh and this is Whimsical and Interesting Musings, and today we're going to be talking about Series 4 of Inside Number 9. And the first episode we are going to look at is Zanzibar, which is told on the 9th floor of the Zanzibar Hotel, and it follows a group of people, two of which are played by the same person. Rory Kinnear plays a well-off prince, and he's being escorted to his hotel room by a bodyguard played by Reece Shearsmith, who's planning on killing him and taking the throne for himself because he's meant to be the rightful heir of this particular throne of England that he's supposed to be, going for. And another group of people, or a couple, is a man played by Rory Kinnear and his wife, who kind of has fallen out of love with him because he thinks he's quite dull and he's not very adventurous at all. So their relationship is on the rocks, and Rory Kinnear tries to do something very sweet and say, I want to put an engagement ring in the apple tart. And he tries to do that, but it all goes wrong when the prince decides to ask for an escort to come to his hotel room, and hijinks and shenanigans ensue, all while being, serenaded and very happily, indulged in the iambic pentameter format of dialogue, which must have been a very tricky thing to do. But again, this is one of the more, interesting, dramatic episodes because it's very colourful. It reminds me a lot of the Paddington films, the first two Paddington films, and the films of Wes Anderson, where they're very bright and colourful. The costumes and the set design are very kind of, theatrical and very, beautifully photographed, and they're very, vibrant in colour and all these other things. So it kind of reminded me of that when I was watching Zanzibar. So it reminded me of all those sorts of things. But what's really good is it's very light-hearted and very charming, and it's a fantastic episode, very funny. There's a lot of great, twists and turns, but it is a really fun episode, and I would highly recommend it. That is Zanzibar, Episode 1, Series 4. The second episode is called Bernie Clifton's Dressing Room, and it's about a double act by the name of Cheese and Crackers, who are played by Shearsmith and Pemberton respectively. They are basically reuniting after several years apart to do one final routine and one final, set piece gig before they finally go their separate ways. Shearsmith's character is very well off, and he has kind of like a high paying, office job where he's kind of, head of a company, and he's in charge of making sure that people delete all the offensive and all the politically incorrect routines that Cheese and Crackers did over the years, whilst Crackers, played by Pemberton, is kind of excited. In fact, he's absolutely ecstatic to finally get back onto the comedy scene. And Cheese is none the wiser, essentially. Shearsmith, I'm just going to call them Shearsmith and Pemberton. Shearsmith and Pemberton are both very different, but they're also very similar in a lot of ways. When they do routines, they're very kind of, there's this energy to them, and it's a fantastic display of their sort of, camaraderie and how they work off each other very well. But Shearsmith is one of those people who's very kind of, okay, this is too offensive, we need to take this out, and this routine's kind of a little bit dated, we need to tie up a little bit and make it more modern. And Pemberton's like, how can we love it? It's perfect, it's magic. It can all these other things, like, what are you talking about? And he goes, well, people are very easily offended. Shearsmith goes, well, people are very easily offended now. We can't, keep, relying on ethnic stereotypes and things like that. So it kind of becomes a very difficult episode to watch when it comes to them kind of bickering back and forth, but it gets really serious when it gets very serious when a routine about brown bottles standing on a wall it is basically being done. He used to do, Pemberton's character used to do the routine with actual beer in the glasses to really add to the authenticity of his performance when he actually, gets drunk. But this actually led to a very horrible incident where he ended up getting too drunk to the point where he ended up, passing out in his dressing room and waking up in a pool of his own vomit. And this is when the actual motivation of why Shearsmith had to break up Cheese and Crackers, because he felt like his partner was wasting away, essentially. He was basically, relying too much on the alcohol to the point where he actually depended on it during performances, and it actually ruined any possibility of the act going anywhere still further. And it's a really sad episode for that reason, because it basically explores the theme of regret. Like, what would you do if you hadn't said something to someone? What would you do if you spent so long away from that person and they finally come back into your lives? What would you want to say to them, just to tell them that, just to get this off your chest and to really clear your head? What would you say to this person if you felt like you needed to say something which really needed to be said? How would you go about it? And for that reason, this episode is fantastic. But also, it's a great homage and a send-up to the comedy double acts of Britain. In Britain, we love our comedy acts. We love our Morecambe and Wises. We love our Rick Mayles and Aid Edmondsons. If you're a fan of Bottom and the Young Ones, those are the two I'm talking about. We love our double acts. We love Ant and Dec. We have all sorts of double acts. Dick and Dom. The Chuckle Brothers. There's so many great comedic double acts in Britain, and of course we love Laurel and Hardy, even though they're not British. We love ourselves a double act. So the fact that they were literally doing their send-up of that, and of course they are literally a great double act themselves, Shearsmith and Pemberton, it really works very well, and it actually got me very emotional in a couple of places. Like, seeing this level of drama and serious acting coupled with these great comedic routines was actually a really nice treat and really wonderful to watch. And the twist is very nice, it ties up everything, but it's also really sad. It really leaves you with kind of like it brings a tear to the eye. It really does. It's a fantastic episode. It's really funny. It's really heartfelt, and I would highly recommend it. That's Bernie Clifton's Dressing Room. And moving on to Once Removed, and I am just going to say it. This particular storyline is basically a Hitchcock plot, but done in reverse, where it starts off with the main peak of the episode already being revealed, and from the rest of the episode onwards, you're basically seeing the events in reverse order. And this is one of those things where you're either with it or you're against it, just based on that setup. I do see what people mean when they say that it's kind of a bit of a dead man's float when you immediately establish this is taking place in reverse or being told backwards kind of gimmick, because yes, it's an interesting way of telling a story, but when you look at it from the point of view of entertainment value or giving you suspense as a viewer or as a reader, does it really hold any value? Like, does it have any sense of, oh, okay, you have these moments where you're like going, oh, that's how it happened, but in many ways it can kind of feel like, oh, well, it completely drains the suspense out of the situation, because you already know where it's going, because it starts off where the actual storyline should end and it goes backwards to the very beginning, and it can often drain a lot of the suspense, and that can be very soul-crushing. So, or that can be very kind of, that can ruin the viewing experience for a lot of people. You can find yourself asking, why do we need to see this if this is being told in reverse order, because we already know where it's going anyway. But I do like it, because being the wonderful writers that they are, Shearsmith and Pemberton do a wonderful job of actually trying to add in a few twists and turns here and there, and actually making you think that, oh, that's actually good. They threw in a twist there that actually pays off this thing, and it manages to, make sense in the grander scheme of things, because then you can see why they did it in this order, because they needed to include that twist later on. And it starts to click together. So I went off kind of, saying that, oh yeah, this particular device can make or break it depending on how you respond to those sorts of things. But I found it to be really, really good. It was actually really compelling. When you have that twist when you add that twist into the equation, you find it works as a whole. A lot of people are kind of, mixed on it, but I actually really do like it, especially with the twist, and I think it's a great episode. And moving on to Have and to Hold, and it basically follows a couple, one of which is played by Shearsmith, and the wife is played by, they don't really have the actress's name listed on here, but she was played by her actress was in the TV show Unforgotten. She's a great actress, and she does a good job here as playing this woman who essentially is in a marriage where her husband is kind of eccentric. He likes to do these very elaborate jigsaw puzzles. He likes to have pot noodles every day. Like, he has this big pack of pot noodles brought to him. And you wonder, he's kind of a very eccentric fellow, and he's a wedding photographer, so he has a very specific space in his house, his basement, where it's his dark room, and he develops his photos. But their marriage is kind of going nowhere, despite the fact that they're renewing their wedding vows. But you can really tell when you are watching their dynamic that they are totally different people. And she is very enthusiastic. She wrote an entire speech dedicated to how she feels he's made her life better, and she's, really changed the way she views herself and the way she views other people. She sees it as a very fantastic experience being married to him. But then he just kind of goes, "Yeah, it's all right, it's good. I'll write mine on the day or whatever." Like, he waves it off very casually, and then we realise there's a reason why he is the way he is, and there's even this very awkward scene when they are doing foreplay and it doesn't work. She's in a nurse's outfit and he's just basically playing along, and he realises it doesn't work. And first we're kind of thinking it's very weird how to read this couple, but then when we get to a scene where he's showing clients coming over to their house to view these wedding photos he's taken, the couple actually assume that she's a nurse because she's wearing a nurse's outfit, and it's very weird because they very instantaneously get into an argument about their relationship while a client of her husband's is in the house. And at first we're not really sure who we should be siding with or siding against during this particular dynamic. And then we realise that there's a reason why she's giving so much to this relationship. And then we realise that she was cheating on him, and he basically followed her and took photographs, and their relationship has kind of gotten down the pan a little bit. And I thought, well, judging by the way you've been behaving with her, I'm not really at all surprised that she did cheat on you. And all those things. I'm not saying that sort of thing I condone, but I just think in terms of the story, I got why she would come to that conclusion, because if you're not giving anything back, then it's no point even trying. I mean, I've been in that way during a lot of relationships where a lot of men that I've dated have not given a lot back, and I've given a lot to them, even on dates where I've actually met them face to face. It really does feel like they're not really giving enough, and I'm giving a lot. So I can definitely read that kind of dynamic. I've been on enough, failed dates to know when something isn't working and all these other things. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, but often, a lot of times, it mostly ends badly. So, yeah. And then we get to a very interesting scenario where it turns out that Pemberton's character is basically keeping someone in the basement in a soundproof room, feeding the pot noodles, and this takes a very specific level of discomfort and actually elevates it to a different area entirely, off the radar, weird, and it actually is very suspenseful. It starts from being very depressing and very uncomfortable to begin with, but then it gets to a new level of horrific when that twist reveal that he's keeping someone in his basement. That's when it really starts to kick off. It's a great episode, though. I would highly recommend it. It's a fantastic, suspenseful story. Great performances all round. And it's a really great, but it's a really great episode. I'd highly recommend it. It's called To Have and To Hold. And the next episode is a much more lighter affair. It's called And the Winner Is, which follows a group of people in a room trying to decide, a committee of people from a talent agency or from a board of directors who are trying to cast the winner of the Best Actress category in an award show. And all of these particular people who are, in their own way, kind of very, egotistical, kind of one-upmanship type people who are already thinking of their careers and how to progress them. Reece Shearsmith plays a writer who is trying to get his script produced, so he continuously, tries to get under the wing of of what's his name? He played Mickey in Doctor Who, Eccleston's Doctor Who. Noel Clarke, yeah, that's it. He tries to get Noel Clarke under his wing and have him read the script. And he plays a director who's very particular about his craft, and he obviously judges a lot of these women on their performances and their craft. And often, a lot of the times, a lot of these people are very kind of bitter and very kind of self-serving. It is very funny though, especially Susan from the Royal Families, very kind of aging actress, well, not aging actress, but very kind of, grandiose and darlings kind of kind of mannerisms. She's a great character, and of course the actress who plays her, I've forgotten her name again, but she's a great actress. She's very funny, and she plays it very well here. And I'm trying to look to see if there's any kind of ideas. But yeah, this is a funny episode. It's got a great back and forth between these two actors. There are a lot of very uncomfortable scenes in this particular episode, but it's mostly driven on humour and how these characters interact with each other. But the fact that Susan from the Royal Family continuously says to every single actor, "Oh, she stole my heart," every single time an actress is mentioned, it's like, well, you said that about the last one, and everyone starts to see it as a recurring gag. Like, oh, let me guess, this person stole your heart after a while. It's one of those things, but she even reveals that she didn't even see any of the nominations for when she was meant to go to this wall panel. She's meant to go to a show, like a matinee, in a few hours, and she's doing this, and I thought, how can you do that? Like, that's just so tiring, and so, difficult to do, but when you're in high demand, I guess that's something that you've got to do. But yeah, this episode is really funny. There's more humour in this than anything else. And it's called And the Winner Is. And it's actually got a really good twist. Decent twist, not the best, but it is a good twist. It fits the tone of the episode very well. And that's And the Winner Is. The final episode is our supernatural episode, which is called Tempting Fate. And one of the things that I do, and it involves one of the things that I haven't actually brought up about this show so far. In every episode of Inside Number 9, there is a statue of a hare, like a tiny little statue of a hare, featured in nearly every episode of Inside Number 9. And people have referenced the hare a lot in this particular episode. And I didn't think anything of it, even when I was looking at the director's commentaries for these episodes, for, with Shearsmith and Pemberton inside Number 9, which you can watch on YouTube, and I will highly plug that particular podcast on YouTube if you can. And also I want to drop a few other YouTubers who cover Inside Number 9. I want to name drop Wee Lin. She's a fantastic YouTuber. She basically does Inside Number 9 videos, and a lot of the episodes that she's done is really fantastic. She did an analysis video of the 12 Days of Christine, which I loved, and she's also done a couple of other videos, such as on the horror film Oculus, and one of my personal favourites, The Babadook. So if you can, please go and subscribe to Wee Lin and another YouTuber called Stu Bag Full, who does media-related videos on things like Inside Number 9, as well as Doctor Who. He's the guy who does the He Who Moans Doctor Who segments, and he's a fantastic YouTuber, and he's also an aspiring writer himself, so I'm definitely recommending his channel on those merits alone. And he also did an episode of an hour-long video on Friends, so I'd highly recommend his channel, and I'd recommend you subscribe and like his content. He's fantastic. And yeah, the hare ends up in every single episode. Shameless plug aside for other channels. I do personally think this is a great episode, and it's very suspenseful. It's that idea of what would happen if you got the opportunity to have a chance to make a wish. What would you wish for? Would you wish for personal wealth and happiness? Would you wish for someone else to get the happiness, like to say goodbye to a loved one that they lost years ago, or have a conversation with someone that they've missed for several years, or to cure a particular disease that's affected a family, or whatever it is? What would you do? Would you do it for personal gain, or would you do it to help others? And that's the basic conundrum of this particular episode. what would these three people do to when they have the opportunity to make a wish? And it's a very funny episode. It's very dark and it's very moving as well, which I was very surprised at. But the wishes thing, kind of like the monkey's ball, the wishes thing kind of is a very difficult topic to broach and do it in a very unique way. But the fact that they did it with a reoccurring motif of the statue of the hare and incorporated it as a huge part of the plot in a particular episode, I thought that was a genius move on the part of the writers. And I thought this is one of the better ones where they actually took this idea and really kind of, just ran with it. And they really took it to all sorts of different areas. And there's even a twist at the end, which really made me think, wow, that's actually a really great way to do it, and a really great way of turning on its head all the concepts of the wish fulfillment or the genie in the lamp kind of scenarios where you've only got 3 wishes, or you've only got a certain set of wishes to go off of before your entire wish list is cut off entirely. It's a very great twist of the logic, and it's a really great way of capping off the series overall. And this is by far the most interesting season of Midsummer number 9 yet. I really do think every season up to this point has been really interesting in terms of quality, but this one's been very got a really diverse set of episodes, and I really am excited to see what Shearsmith and Pemberton are doing next for the next few seasons, because it's a fantastic track record, and I would highly recommend every episode. And of course, don't forget to check out those channels I referenced in this video, and I hope you're all having a very good day. Look forward to more videos very soon. Take care.